we have any responses, John Ruben? Okay, we'll do Sunday.
Sunday, APB's proposal seems fantastic. It is a middle ground that will help everybody, would totally bring my blood pressure down, because bad debt, unpaid membership fees may be due to some global disruption, can create a situation where we are forced, because that is the policy, to drop 50% of our members. I don't want to imagine what effect that will be on AFRINIC. Again, caution.
Okay.
This is Alain, community member. Sunday, can you please, because we have to balance. As registry, we have the obligation to get the data accurate, up to date. And at the same time, we have to protect the organization, the money part. But we need to decide. And we cannot, otherwise we are not fulfilling our role as RIR.
I'll hate to ask some questions publicly, but again, let me be clear. The staff right now can do it. Nothing stops them from doing it. As the council has advised, it's already covered within the RSA. I chose my words carefully. I did not say we should not do it. All I said is that I agree with APB's position to change the word shall to may, so that you can do it when you need to do it, and if it would drastically work against you, then you will be patient so that the tide will turn and then you can do it. But as I said, I would hate a situation that would put a very huge pressure on our financial base, when in fact we could have mitigated it from now. Thank you.
Okay, and one more comment.
Mr. Chairman, I think the financial issue is his issue. For me, our issue is whether we need policy or not. I don't think we need policy. We rather need some form of empowerment of staff, maybe through BCP or internal documents, okay, to be more eager or more aggressive in their mechanism of getting the data accurate. You've heard some suggestions and proposals and so on, but I think if you make a policy, you're actually weakening your own RSA, in my opinion. Okay, so don't go policy way, go internal documentation, internal procedures, and improve that database. And I remind you, maybe it's better for you to reach out to the customer than to wait for the customer to come to you. And that is maybe another way in which you can get more money, by the way. If you come and sit in front of me, I'll write a check faster. If you are so far away and you leave me, I'll wait to the last minute so I don't get penalty.
Okay, thank you. So, as the author of this policy, this is my position. Can we say that we believe, or we kind of agree, that if we come up with an amendment or BCP that will be presented to the community for comment, etc., that will be attached to the RSA, that will solve the problem? Yes or no?
Do we have anybody aside from Ernest who can answer that question? Or is that... He was... okay.
Let me tell it another way. Do we say that if we come up with a kind of amendment or BCP that will help the staff and that will be attached to the RSA, we solve the problem? If yes or no?
just, yes.
Arthur Carindal. I'm sorry, I was at the hospital, just arrived now. Just a clarification before replying to your question. What is the status, okay, of the member contact update? So far, we have 320 members. Weak contact are not accurate. Okay. Last year, we have around 500. Okay, and so far, 320 remain unupdated. So it is a bit hard for African staff to call members, sending email, sometime no reply from them, and we have for those members email that are bounced. So it is consuming time for us to dedicate only our time on those customers and members. So there is the status right now. So we have 320 members. Contact are not accurate. Thank you.
I think the question is still, though, would a BCP or amendment be helpful?
Normally, we have, as already some people already said, we have RSA, article in RSA that can help us, but what is the decision we can take to enforce members to accurate unless the membership can be cancelled? But I have not that decision at my side. But if the board, or I don't know, we can use that policy, that article to enforce members. That will be one way we can use to force our members to accurate the contact. Okay, thank you.
Hi.
Alan, but this is the end of the end, I think, at this line here. It's just...
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I would be opposed to trying to staple this onto the RSA. I don't think it belongs there. I would support the staff just doing it. They already have the power. If they feel that they don't have enough power or that they don't have a mandate, then perhaps the board could pass a resolution clarifying that the staff does have a mandate to clean up the whois.
I am Jacques Ngbo from Africa Set. I just want to answer your question about empowering the staff. Someone has mentioned that there is a need to have a clear process of applying what the RSA is saying. So maybe the internal document or the, how do you call it, BDP or PDP? No, you were talking about an internal document.
BCP.
BCP. And that document needs to be very clear in the different steps for the staff to be clear on what they have to do. If you don't have this kind of process clearly defined, it may be difficult for staff to enforce what is put already in the RSA.
Thank you.
Mark Elkins, speaking as an ISP, POSIX Systems. I have no clue where my RSA is. I have no idea which cupboard or wherever it is. Sticking something onto the back of it will make no difference, I believe. However, I see this policy as another big hammer, except this hammer's got flashy lights, more visible. And when I do things, what I do is I do go onto the AFRINIC website and I look for stuff. I look at policies there. And so I'm more likely to notice this policy on the website. So I'm more likely to notice this. And I don't think I'm an exception. So stapling it on, no good. And if the board was asked to ratify that the staff have the permission to follow the RSA, I'm sure the board, well, I know that the board would make such a ratification.
Thank you, Mark.
Hi, this is Ken Yiptong. Just listening to this policy, I think we should not mix issues. This policy, we're talking about a policy and RSA. And RSA is a legally binding document between AFRINIC and its members. So whatever the policy say, the RSA will always prime over any policy. So the policy clearly states what AFRINIC staff can do. So I think we should not also get into management decision on how they handle members. I think the staff of AFRINIC needs to have the liberty of deciding how to act on it. And then if the board thinks that the staff is not doing the proper thing, then it is up to the board to act. And if the community then, then what needs to be changed, if you're not happy with it, it's the RSA that needs to be changed, not a policy to change an RSA. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Andrew here. Speaking from a personal perspective, I look at it, and from my perspective as well, the RSA grants the power to do certain things. It is at the discretion of the staff, I would say personally, as to whether or not they choose to follow those things. I feel that because it is a legally binding document, absent of a specific instruction to not follow the RSA, the staff do have the right to enforce it, and I don't think this policy is necessary. And I also echo what Sunday has said, that I feel that this policy could put us in a precarious position in a jacket that we would not be able to remove. And I think we need to balance the intent of this policy, which I have no issues with the potential sustainability of the organization.
Thank you, Andrew, and we'll take Wafa.
Wafid Dahmeni from Tunisian Internet Agency. I would add something for this policy. I think we don't need to break the contract, because AFRINIC should have partnership membership with the members, of course. And I think perhaps the supporting document will help. If I speak of our experience, the mails that were sent by AFRINIC really pushed us to have really updated who is database. And I think it's a matter of involvement of the members. They should do it. It's mentioned in the contract. Of course, AFRINIC will not break the contract. As I said, they should be a partnership membership and not a seller or a buyer. That's it.
Thank
Just
you.
a final comment to Mark Elkin's remark. The updated version of the RSA, ever since AFRINIC was incorporated, we have several versions of the RSA. The most updated version of the RSA is available on our website, and it applies to all the members. Even if they sign the older versions of the RSA, the latest one is the one that is applicable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jean-Robert, do you have any?
Thank you very much, everyone. That was a very interesting and fruitful decision. So as the author of the policy, I'm happy to withdraw the policy with one reserve, that AFRINIC staff will find ways to give us a better data in the WHOIS database. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank Jean-Robert, but also everybody here for spending the last 45 minutes discussing something of importance to the AFRINIC community. And sometimes the withdrawal of a policy is just as important as the adoption. So hopefully we'll see some improvements on this in the future. So in summary, there are a lot of people for and a lot of people against this proposal, and it has now been withdrawn.
Okay, thank you very much. That session is concluded. that particular item is concluded on the agenda. The next item on the agenda is the proposal on any CAS resource assignment in AFRINIC region. So I'm going to ask Mark to defend or present this proposal. Mark, up to you.
Just point to that. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I don't have a name tag up here. I hope that's fine by everyone. 6 months ago, at the last meeting, we had the AnyCast resource assignments for the AFRINIC region policy passed. And then afterwards, and I was a co-author of that, as it's something that I believed in. And, oh, there we go. And people then pointed out to me that they felt the policy was not complete because the current policy doesn't talk about IPv6. So this is a very simple policy modification. It basically includes the IPv6 resource and it includes an ASN number for the purposes of AnyCast within the well, from AFRINIC resources, I will say. So, like I said, there was no provisioning for AS number, and that is basic, and IPv6, and therefore that's what the modification is about. There was some simplification of some other words on the mailing list, from advice from the mailing list. And it really is as simple as that. There shouldn't be anything contentious. We're not introducing a policy of any caste or anything, simply modifying something that's already been passed by the community. There's a word in here somewhere. The other slight modification was to receive a number resource allocation or assignment and AX number for any caste or GPS roaming exchange. Before there were some other RFC numbers around the word any caste or close to the word any caste. So it's just a simplification. Otherwise there is no change of any type to the existing policy. These slides keep repeating themselves. So most comments on the mailing list were in support of the proposal. Sorry, leave it there.
Thank you, Mark. I think this particular policy was very minimal. If there was a way we could actually do this without going through PDP, maybe. But the main point was that there were no major, there was, in fact, no, and that is actually the reason why we had to put that second one. There was really no comment, not in support of the edit. Yeah, so some people said the support, and they also suggested the rewarding, which the author did effect before this particular meeting. The staff analysis for this is they did not find any operational or legal issue or the proposer. Like Mark has said, all what the proposer is doing is just to put IPv6 into consideration. It's something that has been approved before for V4 and so on. So this is just two things which may not really necessary. Of course, whatever it is that we have to say could exceed these 2 points, but 2 questions. But if there's anything to say about this particular proposal, I would like to call on, I would like to declare that the floor is open. Alan, please.
Hello, Alan Barrett. I support this proposal. I think it's only sensible to have the same rules or very similar rules for V4 and V6. However, I had to read the proposal fairly carefully before I understood that the requester could choose to apply for only one or any two instead of all three of those things. So if I choose to only get a V6 allocation and I don't want V4, if you read the proposal carefully, then you can see that it's allowed. But at first glance, if you don't read very carefully, it's not obvious. At first glance, it looks as though you have to take all three. So I would just request some minor rewording to clarify that the requester can choose any or all of those three things.
Thank you, Alan. Alan, I would appreciate if you could look at the section that you think is not clear and actually send the edit to the author. Thank you. But I'm going to take it that you support the proposal just with the edit. Yeah, thank you. Alan. Yeah.
Yes, this is Alain Aina, a community member. So I think we need to be careful here. If Mark was just adding policy for V6, so why do we put V4 in new policy? And if you read the new policy proposal very well, it touched something very important. And I remember when we discussed the any caste policy, I don't know, in 2008, one of the points was who qualified to get the any caste allocation or assignment. And at that time, the consensus was to keep the BCP 126. So you have to use this following the BCP 126. But in the new policy proposal, which on the website, the BCP 126 is no longer part of it. So there is a significant change there, and I would like to know why.
Mark, would you like to make a comment on that?
It was on advice of the person one of the people standing at the microphone.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Who is Nishal. The person? Is it Nishal or Andrew? I'd like the person to respond. Yeah.
Hi, this time I actually get to bump Andrew. This is Nishal. Alain, to answer your question, that was my recommendation. And it was a very simple reason. BCPs change all over time. BCPs change over time. We've updated BCP 38 several times. We've updated other BCPs all the time. I think what we need, and this was the consensus at the time, this was when we spoke offline to the policy author, was that yes, there absolutely needs a way to define what is an any caste operator. And the AFRINIC staff already have means of doing this. That was confirmed with them. If at some point that BCP has to change and we start putting in normative references to things like 126 or 4786, then a change in update, even for the benefit of 4786, means a change in policy. And that is how it was explained to me. And rather than have to go through this again, drag Mark out here and explain that we need to, well, update the policy because the BCP has changed, then I think the text that we suggested was any caste and AFRINIC staff would determine what is appropriate use of any caste. I think the staff are capable of doing that. I think it's very trivial to find out where and how someone's doing any caste. Of course, if you're asking, and if anyone else is asking, if this needs to be an African operator doing any caste, I think that question is answered already. I clearly think that we only give resources to African operators, right?
Okay, thank you. Alan, I don't know whether that is sufficient. Is it? If it's on this same comment, please, I would like that we will address that and conclude on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, BCP changed, but there is a process at ITF to do that. So a new BCP may update or obsolete, etc. And if the new BCP come and change fundamentally the game, we probably need a new policy. Because the issue here, if you read this policy, it said any caste. So I can take 1/24 and say I am running any caste for my FTP server or for anything. So this troubled me a little bit because we need to define what we are giving numbers to and what type of any caste people should use it for. So otherwise, it open the door for anyone to run any caste, to say they are running any caste or any services, any protocol.
So you support the policy, but you prefer if it included the BCP?
If you ask me, I would say this policy should be for root server, CCTLD operators, GTLD operators, RIR, critical. Finish.
Okay, you should specify those three. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Andrew here. I speak from Liquid Telecom's perspective here and also wearing my own personal hat. I support this policy with a reservation, and I'd also like to respond to what Elaine has just said. I have a slight reservation in where it says that on the application for additional space, the whole Anycast subnet will be considered utilized. Because in the case of somebody running 7 DNS servers, it allows a situation where they can then take 7/24s, and then they can keep adding them and adding them and adding them with no limitations. I believe that does open a potential for abuse, even though they are using them for Anycast. You could consume a huge amount of address space in that manner. So that is a slight concern of mine. With regards to what Elaine has said, look, from the Liquid perspective, as I said, I'm speaking from the Liquid perspective here, we run Anycast. I can count at least 9 different services that we have Anycasted across 14 countries with different instances in different countries. And I would oppose putting a limitation on what people can use Anycast for, because Anycast is a routing, it is a routing term. And if a provider can find a way to take any service and make it redundant and serve the community better, I do not believe that it is our right to dictate to an operator how they can run their services. And if it falls under the definition of Anycast, let them use Anycast. That is my opinion. Basically, don't tell me how to run my network.
Sorry, Andrew, can you come back, please? In summary, you're saying that because you first mentioned that you actually agree with the reservation of Alain?
No. I said that I have a reservation about the fact that somebody can keep applying for more and more and more by taking one IP address out of every /24. I disagree with Elaine in trying to limit this to specific Anycast services. I'm simply saying that if you've got a /24, you should be free to take 50 IPs out of that /24 and use them to Anycast different services with no limitation on what those services are that you are Anycasting. And I would prefer a situation where there was some limitation on the number of /24s you could get without showing that you are using an adequate number of IP addresses, though there may be a reason behind saying that you can keep applying for more and more, and I may be convinced otherwise on that point. But I do strongly oppose telling a network operator what can be Anycasted and can't. That I have a major issue with.
So you support this policy as it's written?
Correct, with that one reservation about the count that says you can simply apply for more and more and more and more.
Okay, thank you. Alain?
If you allow me, so this is not about telling people how to run network. If you apply for resources, you have to justify. And we are talking about how you justify the need. And so Andrew, so if you said there should be a limitation on this, so why are we limiting this to 1/24? Then I could choose a number of /24 and 1 because I need to run network. I have many services. So why are we limiting to 1/24?
Hello, I'm concerned that it seems now to be a one-on-one talk. So let me just diffuse it a little by hearing from Nishal. However, Andrew and Alain, you can, while Nishal is giving his comments, you can actually agree and disagree with yourself and come back again to make a comment. Nishal, could you proceed, or Andrew is speaking on your behalf?
I don't mind. Not speaking on my
No. Richard, please proceed with your comment first. Andrew, I understand that the comment seems to be interactive with Alain. Could you kindly interact with him while Richard is making his comments so that we can make progress?
I have a brief statement.
Okay. All right, Nishal, please.
Thank you. This is Nishal. And no, Andrew does not now or ever speak on my behalf.
And the same goes vis-a-vis.
No problem, that's fine.
Thank you. So I want to respond to something Alain said earlier on. My comment about removing the reference to 4786 was purely because I didn't want to go through a policy process again if the BCP changes. I think we're all aware of how that process happens, but that still necessitates a policy change. So I'm looking to the future. As I said, for me, I would want AFRINIC staff to say, we understand any caste, or conversely, we don't understand any caste, so please can the community write out a mechanism for us doing this? Oh, guess what? There is already something. But if you require, Alain, if you need 4786, the reference in there to get this going ahead, it's not a big deal to me. I have no issues with that. I think Mark doesn't either. We have spoken on the matter, and I'm happy to leave that in there. The other component about removing or allowing any caste to be only done by route operators or TLD operators, I am in violent opposition to that. And I can talk about why that's a bad thing, but you've already heard what Andrew said, so mostly what he said. Basically, don't tell me how to run my network. I'm competent enough to do it.
Thank you, Nishal. Andrew?
I just wanted to add a point of clarification, because based on what Alain said, he was referring to 1/24. That is not what I said. I simply said that I have a concern that people can apply for unlimited /24s without justifying why they're not using at least more than one IP address out of every block. I think there should be some justification for that. And I'll give an example here. I run 6 DNS servers in the same /24. I think that if I were to declare that I was running each DNS server in a separate /24 for any caste, I would need to have a very strong justification before I could just choose through 6 /24s out of the block. With regards to other services, Alain, I need to just hand some examples. DNS, already stated. TACAX servers, stated. I've now stated that one. Database services, we have specific uses for database anycast for a variety of things. There are several they're not defined everywhere because we've got different perspectives. So I echo what Nishal said, and I'd like to say I am violently opposed to that limitation.
Thank you. Alan?
Hello, Alan Barrett again. I agree with Andrew that if you want more than one of these allocations, you should need a justification. But I'd like to point out that there are valid reasons why you might want to run different DNS servers in different /24s, because maybe you have different policies for how you want the load to be shared between your different instances. So as long as it's possible for an operator to put only one server in their /24, I'm okay with that. But I agree with Andrew that they should have to justify it. I also agree with Andrew that it should not be restricted to DNS or GRX. If someone invents a new service tomorrow that works with anycast, then I'd like this proposal to apply to it as well.
Thank you, Alan. Dr. Ni.
This is Nikweno. I'm just looking for information. I am wondering what happens in other regions. And is there any precedence that calls, for example, for using it beyond TLDs?
Okay. Okay, that's the question. Is there anybody from other region that wants to say something about this? Okay, Nishal, please.
Hi there, my name is Nishal. I work at Packet Clearinghouse. Amongst other things, we run anycast networks across the globe at over 92 internet exchange points when I last counted. Not all of our address space, that is anycast, comes out of a /24. You would have seen proposals like that made on the list, and there's been no suggestions or comments as to what the appropriate size is. We specifically run 2 separate anycast clouds. We provide services free of charge to a lot of the operators that are in the room, the CCTLD operators, and we specifically run infrastructure out of 2/20. 1/21/21 to be able to deal with, amongst other things, large-scale denial of service attacks. So there's not a requirement, and the address space that we have, sorry, the address space we're using, I think that's the relevant bit, has not come out of the African region. The regional internet registry that we have gotten the address space out of is happy by our definition and our explanation of what we use with the Anycast space. Obviously, every time we request space, we have to explain how we're doing it. So what Alan is saying, in terms of if you want to add a new node, a new service, you have to be able to justify that. I don't think that was ever up for discussion. I think that was always the intention, that you have to show what you're doing and why it needs to be done differently. That would have been the case even with the old policy, I suspect. If there's a more direct question that I can answer, I'd be happy to.
Okay, Dr. Nee, does that address your question?
No, I just want to know what RIPE does, or what ARIN or anyone,
okay,
so that I can be informed as to, what judgment to make.
Okay.
Because, this cannot be something so new. I want to just.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. So we have some other IR members, staff in this room. Okay.
Well, maybe Sander can comment on this, but I just went to a RIPE support document. Sorry, Jan George speaking as a member of random community around the world.
Random.
And it says in the supporting document, it's RIPE 568, that the end user should be a recognized TLD or INAM Tier 1 operator as listed in these documents. Maybe Marco can comment a bit on this. And my personal opinion is that if I want to Anycast my web server out of my Go6 lab, why shouldn't I? Why limit this to a TLD and INAM 1 tier operator? And maybe I should bring this back to the RIPE community, but I see the same issue here.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, Marco Schmidt, RIPE NCC Policy Development Officer. I can confirm what Jan said, that according to our policies, you have to be a registered TLD operator. So when we get a request, there's a special request form, we check this. And and then we check if there are at least 2 nodes. And if this is justified, we hand out /48.
Sorry, can you confirm to me, you said you have to be a registered TLD operator. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's correct. That's how the policy says it.
Is that the policy that said that, or your internal documentation?
No, it's written in the policy.
It's written in the policy. Okay, thank you very much for that very important information. Any other comments? Hello? And it would be good to hear if there is any other IIR that has similar policy to share their experience. Nishal, please go ahead.
Hi, it's Nishal, community member this time. I just want to say, I have a policy coming up next, and I'll preempt that if you allow me, please, if you allow me. When we were writing that, we considered what policy is in place in other regions. And we started to look into that. We used RIPE, of course, as the start. And then I stopped. I stopped looking at the other regions because I realized that the policy that we're writing, the one that's coming up for discussion, was specific to this region. And while it's nice to know what people in the other regions were thinking and writing about, it isn't necessarily applicable to us. When I teach classes, I always say a fool learns from his mistakes, a wise man learns from a fool's mistakes. In my opinion, the RIPE policy is flawed because having the requirement to be a TLD operator is a really bad thing. I'm speaking now as an ex-operator who ran Anycast networks across this continent. That would have really, really disenfranchised us. So when the community thinks about who is eligible to it, my guidance to you, having run this for a while, is, are you an AFRINIC member? Do you know how to do this? Can you show the AFRINIC hostmaster team that you're capable of doing this? Well, then let the AFRINIC hostmasters be the one to decide. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Nishal touched on a very important point. May I ask a staff member to actually explain how do they have any existing supporting document or existing guidelines which is not necessarily related to the policy, by which they used to decide, determine all these things. Yeah, yeah. Who should do that? Why you? Okay, maybe you need more time. So maybe, please, we need a response on that. Then I'll continue to the next person. Please go ahead, Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Tinker-Seacom. I echo what Nishal was saying. I think for us to have the policy in Africa does not require pre-existing policy in other regions. It would be nice to know what they have, but that shouldn't be a requirement. And yes, I think if we limit the use of any cars just to DNS, that is otherwise short-sighted.
Thank you. Next person.
Hello, Sander Stefan, RIPE Address Policy Working Group. I just want to make a small clarification. Of the policy we have is a policy especially for ENUM and TLD operators. Of course, anybody can just normally request address space and use that in any way they want, example, as Anycast. But this policy is specifically for that target group.
Yeah, just to also make a point, I think anyone also can actually request for any address space in our region at the moment. Yeah, so just a point of information. However, I think Mark has quite a number of responses to the different comments. Mark.
One clarification here is the policy that was passed at the last meeting already includes not just Anycast services, but also the GRX or the GPRS roaming exchanges, which is something which is which is not in the right policy, number one. Number two, as far as I'm aware, the first entry I saw of anything to do with Anycast was actually instigated by AFRINIC itself. They were the first people to have space assigned for Anycast, and that was long before any policy was put into place. Is this true? Yes. And so did the other company that I wear a hat for. The South African Central Registry had an IP Anycast assignment, both V4 and V6 actually, and an ASN, so that we could also Anycast services. And again, that was before any policy was properly put into place. Lastly, when it says the prefixes will count as being fully utilized when an organization applies for additional resources, that is actually referring to the fact that at the moment, if you get to, what is the percentage on your existing V4 space? But when you get to that, sorry? No. The whole idea was that you would be able to get, if you got an Anycast prefix, it didn't affect any of the percentages of utilization of any other parts of your address space and would not contribute to any free space in your existing allocations or assignments from AFRINIC. It had nothing to do with that. Thank you.
Okay, Madhvi.
I'd just like to give our response to what you asked.
Yeah.
We don't have any formal guidelines on the assigned Anycast on our website. During evaluation, while we, as part of the policy implementation, we usually go with what the policy says regarding assigned Anycast prefix being requested, what is the information that we would need from the requesters, and it's been documented on the AFRINIC portal because this is the this is the tool that our members use to request for the prefix. So we ask specific information specific to the Anycast service because they're requesting for an assigned Anycast prefix.
Thank you, Madhvi. Andrew?
Hi, I'll start this off by saying I've just been requested to speak on Nishal's behalf, even though he said it was going to happen. For Nishal's part, can we suggest that the staff use BCP 126 as an informal guideline until such time as BCP 126 is updated? So that being said, now I'm speaking back for myself. Let's just make that clear. Mark, thank you very much for your clarification on the intent of that count clause. I would suggest that there be a wording modification there to clarify what is meant there. So if we are saying that any cost space and its utilization will not count towards the utilization of standard allocated space or unicost space or some kind of wording modification just to clarify that.
Can you stop there? What is the wrong with the words? The utilization criteria that applies to all IPv4 and IPv6 initial allocations or assignment requests shall be waived for any class assignment requests.
I have no problem with that wording. What I have an issue with is that it says that it will be considered fully utilized the moment that you apply for another any cost. The way that that wording stands, my interpretation of it would be that I could use one address for one DNS server, apply for another, that any cost block would be considered fully utilized for the purposes of application for another any cost block. At that point, if I had 40 different any cost services, irrespective of the fact that I could use the same subnet to any cost them and use different addresses in it, I would qualify under that wording to apply for 40 different /24s. And that is a concern to me because I think it could result in an abuse of the system. So just some clarification. I understand the intent and I like it. I like the intent of what you're saying there. I just ask that the wording be slightly modified to clarify it.
Which wording was never changed from the previous?
No dispute there, but the sins of the past do not mean that we should repeat them in the future.
I just want to be sure. Mark, did you get that? Did you get the point he raised? Did you agree to the point he raised?
I did get that point.
And you consider it? Yeah, thank you.
I wholly believe in the sanity of the IP support team that we have at AFRINIC, that they would take that into consideration. I really trust them.
Sorry, Mark, I need to be clear because it's something that will help us in determining the fate of this particular policy. Are you saying that you've taken note of this consideration, I mean the comment from Andrew, and that you will reflect it in the proposal, or you're saying that you're only going to rely on staff? You're not changing anything on the proposal, but you rely on staff to make the changes. Is that what you're saying? Make the judgment. Is that what you're saying?
Would Ernest like to comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what the co-chair is just said. I think if there is already an ambiguity over a statement, it's better that it be clarified moving forward, to not to put the staff in a position, the difficult position. Thank you.
Then we will look at wordsmithing a very small amount.
Co-chair, so let me second what Andrew said. This is my concern. To abuse, and this is why we had the reference to BCP 126 in the previous policy. Please, if you read the BCP describes scenario like as he said. I take a /24, I use one IP, is full utilized, I come again, etc. And the BCP said clearly, this is not scalable, it's only doable for critical. Then the other way of doing it, you take one /24 and you put multiple anycast node inside, but that one has some operational issues, etc., etc. So we need to be careful and we need
Mark,
to clarify the wording.
Yeah. So Alan. So if I may ask, does reintroducing BCP 126/RFC 478 does it actually address your concern?
It addressed because, as Andrew said himself, it will serve as base for the staff to to publish the requirement and how we evaluate.
Okay, thank you. And Mark, are you willing to
I will
reintroduce-
reinsert that, yes.
Okay, thank you. If there are no more comments, I think it's clear. Mark has actually agreed to make the necessary edits. And I'm going to ask, I think, based on the fact that we now have, we have done some negotiations here, I would like to try to observe consensus of this particular topic by asking for a show of hand. However, I would like to permit me to actually withdraw that last statement. Grant me some time to discuss with my co-chair. This is the first time we're actually doing co-chair. It's been me making the decision the last 1 year, so I almost forgot that. Just a minute. All right. Okay, so we're back. Based on that, okay, based on what we just had right now, my discussion between my colleague, we've concluded that we should actually ask for a show of hand. So I'm going to ask those who are basically in support of this proposal advancing in its current written form without the edit of Mark. I guess we basically shouldn't be saying that, but we kind of will say it for formality's sake. Can I say a show of hand? If you accept this proposal going forward without Mark's edit, your hands up. No, as written, as written. Hands up, as written. Okay. Can staff take notes? If you support this proposal advancing with Mark's agreement to actually make those corrections, hands up.
Yeah, sorry, can I just ask Mark to detail exactly, there's been so many discussions here. So I'd like Mark to just detail what the proposed edits are, not the actual wording, just what exactly he has agreed to edit, because I, for one, am a little confused as to what I am sticking my hand up for. So Mark, if you could just clarify what the issues are that you're going to edit, and then we can do the same call.
According to what Alan Barrett was saying earlier on, confusion about whether one can select one V4, one V6, and also have to have an ASN. The piece between the V4 and V6 was an and/or. I hope that is clear enough. The words before getting an ASN was should get an ASN. That would be wordsmithed to may get an ASN. The second correction or modification would be the addition of the wording as in brackets as per BCP 126 in the proximity to the wording about the word any caste, where those words were before.
Okay, Andrew, does that address do you have any other addition apart from that?
The only thing that I still have a slight concern about is that count issue. That's the only thing that I know.
What count issue, if I may ask?
I know, Mark, you did say that you would do some slight wordsmithing about that. as well.
I think the agreement was that if the wording BCP 126 was there, that would actually cover that. Because that's what BCP 126 says.
Yeah.
Okay, I will accept that.
Thank you. Okay, so now we could actually go to the next phase, next question. So those who accept the proposal to move to the next level, based on considering that the changes will be made, please raise your hand. Okay. Those who are not in support, those who are not in support of seeing this proposal advance to the next level in the PDP, may I see your hand up? Okay. Just a minute. So based on that, I think there is basically consensus to move this to the next level in PDP, which is a, come on, don't interrupt me here, I'm trying to compose my stuff, which is the last call. However, I hope that before the last call ends, Mark will have sent this updated version. Without seeing that updated version, we may not be able to actually make this happen. So we need to see the text and then we'll continue. Thank you very much. This proposal is hereby closed and moved to last call. Thank you. On that note, I think we tried. We only took like 8 minutes of our time out of the normal minutes. So we're gonna, by the way, so we're gonna take a break now and come back at 6. Did I say 6? Come back at 4 to continue. Thank you very much.
Because I don't really see it. Yeah.